Namaste, this is Vivek, and today I am going to discuss about protein. Being a sports person, we all know how important protein is, and nowadays a lot of companies has launched their product in the market to develop the muscles, uh, and especially in fraternity of bodybuilders and even in fraternity of players, these protein shakes and these protein powders are very famous nowadays. So we will discuss, is it worthy to purchase the protein powder? Technically, as I understand, we can fulfill our protein requirement with whatever the food resources we have available. Right, we know protein is required when we are involved in physical activity, and its requirement increase with increased effort in our training, and especially when we are involved in you can say the resistance training for the development of strength, its requirement further increases. So the question arises, can only protein can enhance our muscles development? And the fact is no. Yes, protein can help us to develop muscles, but by consuming only protein you cannot develop muscles. So if you want to develop the muscles, we have to combine resistance training with the right food intake, and in that case protein play an important role. Most of time it has been seen that after completion of the workout, the individual, the player, they rush to take their protein shake, and I think that is not the real thing, and that is not the fact. Most of time, as I have heard that when a player skip their protein shake immediately after the workout, they feel very stressed out. They feel like that they are losing their muscles, but that is not the fact. The fact is, yes, you require extra protein when you are involved in resistance training, when you are involved in any kind of physical activity, and you can easily fulfill your protein requirement in different meals. Suppose I'm a sports person, and I'm also involved in resistance training, and my daily protein requirement is 100 gram, just for example. So in morning I completed my workout, but it does not mean after completion of my workout I should rush to take my protein shake, right? So how we can maintain the balance in respect to our protein requirement? As I told you, suppose my daily protein requirement is 100 gram. We can fulfill our protein requirement by dividing 100 gram in our different meals. Suppose I take 4 meal in a day, so I can divide 100 gram in my 4 meal, and by this way I need 25 gram of protein in my every meal. So if I am taking 100 gram in a day with 4 different meal, it means I have fulfilled my protein requirement. And the literature also suggests that instead of consuming the bulk of protein in a one meal, better to divide and distribute your protein intake in different meal, and by this way your muscles will develop better. By this way you can see more better muscle synthesis in your body. Now we are coming on the sources. There are two categories. One category of vegetarian athletes and one category is non-vegetarian athletes. It has been created in sports fraternity that if you are a non-vegetarian, your protein requirement will not fulfill. That is not the fact. The fact is, if you are a vegetarian, you will face a problem to fulfill your protein requirement, but ultimately you can fulfill your protein requirement, because we all know there are two categories of protein: complete protein and incomplete protein. And technically, and the fact is, in vegan sources there is no foodstuff, there is no source that is the source of complete protein, right? But also the fact is, the vegetarian athlete can also fulfill their protein requirement if they consume the variety of vegetables and fruits, because each vegetables have different kind of proteins. Obviously, there is no any one food source in vegetarian category that is the best source of complete protein, but yes, each food source of vegetarian category has some amount of protein, some category of protein. So if someone is consuming the different categories of fruits and vegetables, they can easily fulfill their protein requirement. And along with this, we should also consider that fruits and vegetables contain protein in small amount, so that if you are a vegetarian, to fulfill your protein requirement you have to consume the rich amount of fruits and vegetables, and by this way you can fulfill your protein requirement. In category of vegetarian sources, there are some good sources of protein, like you can say the soya bean is one of the best, the cereals are also the good source of protein, and even all the green vegetables contain some amount of protein. So there is no need to worry. If you are a vegetarian, you can easily fulfill your protein requirement. Now if we talk about the non-vegetarian sources, obviously non-vegetarian sources are the good source of protein and they are the dense source of protein, and even there are some foodstuffs in category of non-vegetarian products who are the best source of complete protein. If we talk about the egg, who contain all essential amino acids that our body require, so egg is the best source of complete protein. So by consuming egg, someone can easily fulfill their protein requirement, because we are discussing about the protein requirement in case of player who is involved in physical training. We are talking about protein requirement for an individual who is involved in resistance training. So if you are a player who is involved in training and you are involved in resistance training, you can easily fulfill your protein requirement by consuming the different sources of non-vegetarian category. But yes, the non-vegetarian category has certain drawbacks also, because we all know the non-vegetarian source are also source of trans fat that may be unhealthy for the health of player or sports person. And in the fact, the protein is not required to our body too much, because if someone is consuming extra protein than his daily requirement, mark my words, your body is not going to use that protein to develop your muscles. Because if there is the extra protein, if you are consuming extra protein, what your body will do with that extra protein? First, your urinary system will flush out the protein, and after that if there is still protein is remain, in that case our body will use that protein as a source of fuel. And if after that again protein is remain in our body, that extra protein will be converted in the fat, and that is the rarest case. So if we are interested for proper muscular development, we should combine the right proportion of protein along with carbohydrate and fat. Generally we skip the intake of fat because it has been general perception that fat is not good, especially if you are interested to develop the muscles. But technically fat is very essential, because after every intense training program we need to recover faster, and in that case fat play a very important role. Because when we perform any kind of physical activity, our body produce free radicals, our body face lot of tears, and due to which we may face inflammation. And here the fat play a very important role. Fat increase the removal of inflammation. It means if you are taking the right amount of fat in our diet, it helps to reduce the inflammation, and it helps to reduce faster in comparison to the carbohydrate. So my dear friends, don't avoid the fat. Make a right proportion of protein, and again repeating, there is no need to include extra protein more than your requirement, because your muscles are not going to benefited by this extra protein. Yes, include the right proportion of carbohydrate, and yes, please don't forget to include the fat, and that fat should be the good fat.